بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Inshallah, in this session we'll talk about how Allah deceived the Khawarij. The Khawarij is probably a term that you have become acquainted with because of the events that have occurred in the world over the past 2 decades. And you have people from the groups like Al-Qaeda, Daesh, ISIS, among others, Al-Shabaab in Somalia and other places, who are pretty much Khawarij. And for the past 20 years, the Muslim Ummah has been grappling and trying to deal with this problem of the Khawarij, these extremists. And it's a huge fitna that the Muslims had to deal with because younger individuals who are less insightful, less intellectual, less understanding, have less experience in the world and in life, tend to be attracted to this type of ideology. And we need to look and understand that how Iblis deceived these people. What is the root of their problem? Now, the Khawarij began, the first Khariji appeared during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And the Muslims, it became a huge problem during the civil war between Muawiyah and Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. And they were a huge problem in that time. And in our time, they once again re-emerged and became a huge problem. Now, throughout Islamic history, they're always scattered around. But depending on the situation of the Ummah, the stronger the political situation is, the less chaotic the Muslim Ummah is, the more suppressed these people are, the less of a voice that they have. It's only when there's a lot of internal fighting, there's a lot of political weakness, do these groups arise. And even notice in our times today, when you look at where the Khawarij found a home, where they rooted themselves, you find that it's always in countries that politically are very weak, politically are torn apart. Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, politically doing weak. Yemen, they're doing very weak. Somalia. All of these countries have in common is that their government is weak and there's some chaos going on. And the Prophet ﷺ does say this. They come out when there's internal fighting within the Muslim Ummah. Now, you may have, and you probably have heard of a lot of talks about the attributes, the characteristics of the Khawarij. But I want to try and even go back a step, one more step, and try and find the root. You see, these characteristics, like they are young, they have delusions of grandeur, they are very religiously practicing, they're always praying, fasting, doing external deeds. Right? But because of their ignorance, because of their lack of iman, it's only external deeds, their heart is empty, it's void of spirituality. I want to see these characteristics as a symptom of a greater problem and not the problem itself. And to do that, let's look at the very first incident of the Khawarij in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And through it we can derive 2 attributes that all these Khawarij have. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they had just concluded a battle and the Muslims were victorious, and now they were gathering the spoils of war. Now the Prophet ﷺ, being the leader of the Muslims and being the general of the army, the Sharia does give him, and in fact gives the political leader and the general of the army flexibility to distribute spoils of war in a way where they can incorporate the best interest of either the army or the Ummah. And although the Quran in Surah Al-Anfal does give us a particular distribution, there seems to be enough evidence to suggest that there's still flexibility. So every now and then the Prophet ﷺ would sometimes change up the way he distributes the spoils of war to better incorporate newcomers to Islam, to better win the love of newcomers to Islam, at the expense of giving these spoils to Muslims, believers who have been Muslim for a while now. And you have a few incidents of that. This is one of them. So this Khariji, this individual comes and says, "O Muhammad, listen, Listen to the rhetoric. O Muhammad, fear Allah. The way you are distributing spoils of war is not in a way that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are various narrations in this, such as, Ya Muhammad, i'adil. O Muhammad, be just. And I mean, it is truly just shocking. Any Muslim to hear this. I mean, what is this person saying? I mean, he doesn't even have the respect of the Prophet ﷺ saying, Ya Rasulullah, let alone telling him, be just. What do we find from this here? We can derive two things. Number one, look at his audacity. The leader of the Muslims, Rasulullah, of all people, he had the audacity to talk to him, to look at him, to engage him in a way where it's as if the Prophet is at the same level as him, maybe even lower. And he criticized the Prophet ﷺ, i'adil. You don't know Islam. You don't know Islam. You know, as he said in another narration, the way you're distributing the spoils of war is not in a way that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at the arrogance, the audacity he's using to talk to the Prophet ﷺ, and this internal, what he's saying implies that he knows better than the Prophet ﷺ. So this is the first attribute. They have this audacity, they have the audacity to think that they are always right, regardless of who they are conversing with. And number two, right? If this person, let's assume here for a second, if the Prophet ﷺ gave this person the amount of spoils that he was wanting, would he have said this? So what we can imply here, what we could derive here, is that this person is upset because he didn't get the amount of money he wanted for himself. And thus the second attribute of Khawarij, there is some sort of desire that they want, worldly gain, either money or fame. One of these two things. Give them money, they're happy. And you notice that even in our times today, over the past 20 years, some of the leaders of these Khawarij groups, the government would go to them and they would offer these leaders, the imams, right, the most pious, they would offer them money, political position, and they would completely leave their Khariji ways. So one of I don't know if he's currently still the president of Somalia, but one of the presidents of Somalia was once the leader of the Khawarij. The government, the CIA, whoever it is, goes to them, say, hey, we'll make you the leader, we'll give you money, you stop this, or just work for us. Automatically leaves it. So you find that they have this desire for money and fame and power. Now, what we find today in our current times is that the Khawarij, these violent Khawarij, are really dissipating. They're going away. They're scattering throughout the earth. They've been dealt with. But there's another form of Khawarij coming out. It is not as extreme in the sense that they are not as violent and as prone to using violence to enforce their ways or to get what they want. But nonetheless, we find that they have the same mentality, the same problem. And these people are called the Madkhalis. I'm not going to get into history there, but you can find recent talks about these people, and they're starting to spring up in America and also the UK. They're coming out. These people are hypercritical, always criticizing the imams of the Muslims. Any well-known, reputable Muslim leader in America or in the UK, they go after them. This person is off the manhaj. This person is deviated. All these people are working for the kuffar. They're all betraying the ummah. You hear this rhetoric on some names that you might know in America or in the UK. Hypercritical. And their criticism, their audacity is always against who? Leaders. And look at the Khawarij during the time of Ali and Muawiyah. Look at how they spoke to Ali. radiallahu ta'ala anhu. They would tell him, ittaqillah, you know nothing about Islam, you are a kafir unless you do this, you need to do this and you need to do that. The same attribute. The same exact attribute. So no, my dear brother and sister, hypercriticism, this focus on criticizing people, is the sign of a heart that has a disease. Scholars had a principle, a kind of norm within the scholastic group, that we don't criticize individuals. We will discuss their positions and opinions irrespective of the individual. And thus you have a certain principle with muftis that don't tell us who said this and who said that. Rather, just tell us what was said and we will respond to what was said, because it's who said it. We don't care about who said it. We just care about what they said. We're not going to make this personal. And therefore, those people, so-and-so is a dal mudil, so-and-so is a deviant, don't listen to so-and-so, and so-and-so is a betrayer of the ummah, etc. These people are misguided. And they are a type of Khariji. They're always going against the leaders of the ummah. How can we understand, how can we view someone who's literally all of their YouTube videos goes about criticizing the very institutions of Muslim Americans? They attack care, they attack yaqeen, they attack all of these institutions which literally are the foundation of the ummah. I mean, if someone is an enemy of Islam and wants to destroy Islam, what are they going to attack? The same institutions these people are attacking. So we need to ask the question, are these people really faithful people? Are these people who really care about the betterment and the enrichment of the ummah? Or do they care about their own self? And what's interesting, one of these particular individuals, to go to the second point, the second problem that they have a desire, they seek money or fame or both or power. One of these individuals, I listened to an interview, a podcast he had with someone else. And during the podcast, right, he refused to say, no, I don't want to label anyone. No, it's not about labeling, it's not about the individuals. We don't want to do that. Yet, and I kid you not, the next day or 2 days later, the same person releases a YouTube video labeling the same people he refused to label in that podcast. Why? Why the sudden change? And wallahu ta'ala a'lam. When the spotlight was on him, he cooled down a little bit because his desires are being fulfilled. He's gratifying his desires. But as soon as the spotlight is off of him, he has to resort back to these things because he perceives these people as being the competition for the very desires that I want. Like news media, they're always attacking each other. CNN makes fun of Fox and Fox criticizes CNN. It's a competition for viewers. Like businesses will release ads, politicians release ads criticizing their competitor. It's the same thing here. So we have to ask the question, are these people faithful people? Or are they just a non-violent version of the Khawarij? Be careful of them. Be careful of them. And no, someone whose empire, whose content can only revolve around criticizing other people is an ignorant person. A very ignorant person. If they had anything interesting to say, they would say it. But because they don't have anything interesting to say, they have to ride on the backs of those who are interesting. And so what you find that these Madkhalis, what they do is they hide behind reputable figures. They hide behind the name of Ibn Uthaymeen, the name of Ibn Baz, the name of Shaykh, the current Mufti of Saudi Arabia, Salih Fawzan, another scholar in Saudi Arabia. They hide behind these names, say we follow these people to kind of shield themselves. But when you ask these same people that they say that they are following, like Salih Fawzan and Shaykh, there are videos of them saying this. They say these people who do this, who are always criticizing other people, always saying so-and-so is off the path, so-and-so is misguided. These are people of whims and desires. Be careful of them. A Shaykh, a Mufti, a scholar is someone who seeks to unite people. The Madkhalis want to disunite people. Whether they recognize it or not, what they are doing disunites. It creates animosity. Scholars want to reconcile between the ummah, between the believers. Madkhalis are ripping them apart. Scholars focus on knowledge, bringing people closer to Allah. The Madkhalis, these Khawarij, they focus on destroying people. It's all about the people, nothing to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.